working with men like Bhagwan is not easy also. You have to be ready to understand the move of his eyebrow. He's no sex guru. There were no sex parties. I was 14 years. I was there from the beginning of Pune Ashram till 1985 September with Bhagwan. I never saw once a sex party, but I confronted Bhagwan. I, I said, Bhagwan, I feel you are manipulative. My whole media appearances in the 80s, they were training of Bhagwan. This is how he wanted me to present myself. He said, don't be afraid. You are not strong enough, as strong as I would like you to be. And you have seen my old videos, I'm sure, in wild country. So, and it wasn't strong enough for them. I would have chosen to continue that. That means that I was corrupted.
Hey, hi, and welcome to our podcast. In today's conversation, we spoke to Sheela Bernstein, also known as Ma Anand Sheela. Sheela ji was personal secretary to Osho Rajneesh, also known as Acharya Rajneesh and Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh, and she was involved with the implementation and management of the great experiment that was the city of Rajneeshpuram and the Rajneesh commune at Wasco County, Oregon, USA. She currently resides in Switzerland and she runs nursing homes for the elderly and disabled and underprivileged in Mauritius and Switzerland. In today's conversation, we spoke to her about her childhood, about death, about enlightenment, and about the various practical lessons she learned from Osho about leading people and managing people. You don't want to miss out on this conversation. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, Sheila ji. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
We've all seen you be really fearless, especially in Rajneeshpuram and during those days. And over time, Sheila ji, we all grow as we should. I was wondering if looking back, if the Sheila of today were to go back and manage Rajneeshpuram, would she have done anything differently?
No, because what I have done in a given situation, it was done in love, honesty, and hard effort with full dedication. There were no doubts in my mind.
Yeah.
And no expectations of result either.
Right. That's so difficult to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sounding like the way you reflect on it now also is that it came from a pure place in that it was coming just from that place of love, devotion, and commitment to a higher ideal than you and to the mission of essentially creating some kind of evolution in the consciousness of humanity.
Yeah, when you take responsibility for your own being without complaint, without expectations, then it has no chance of corruption. It has no chance of infecting with wishes and desires, where most people become muddled up.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I hear you.
I was saying I was curious. I understand where you're coming from when you say you wouldn't do anything differently. But has your understanding of everything that went down changed now? Have you got a different perspective when you look back?
No, I don't. And it truly doesn't require a different perspective because what was happening around Bhagwan, this happening was one of a kind. World hasn't seen such happening in history of spirituality or history of teachers, gurus, masters. It was one of a kind. And this one of a kind honor somehow layman doesn't give Bhagwan. Layman ignores Bhagwan as if a sex guru or this or that without understanding the fullness of his knowledge, for understanding the analysis of this man in the world of logic and philosophy. People don't understand it. The way he has understood all the scriptures and religions of the world, no other person has done that. No other person had the tolerance or the patience to acknowledge other ideologies and look through it, go through it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Such a fresh, novel, at some points electrifying analysis of Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, politics, ethics, and everything in between. And in fact, as you're reflecting on this, Sheila ji, I'm also feeling like your time at the commune was such it was so far removed from what people call a regular life, because first there was this ecstatic love that you shared with each other, which you described as being absolutely oceanic in nature. You were drowning in it. But there was also the nature of the Rajneeshpuram experiment, which you were helming. There's the community, the sense of achievement, the power, the stress, the fear, the anxieties. Like, it was incredibly intense. And from such an emotionally intense experience to then transition back to a more, what others would call a regular life, a more common life. I'm curious, emotionally, what was that transition like from you? And did that break from so-called regular life sort of give you an insight into regular life that others who don't have such ecstatic or intense experiences don't have?
It was when I decided to leave Bhagwan, and when I left him, there was not much time in between. I made a decision, and next day I was gone. This, at that time, this decision was emotional. Much pain was there in me. Much sadness was there. To leave a man like Bhagwan. But compromise on fundamental issues, compromise on my integrity, I was not able to do it. That was the training of Mother Father. So I was true to them too, and also true to Bhagwan, because if I would have chosen to continue that means that I was corrupted. I was ready to tolerate nonsense for security, but I could not allow myself for that. At the same time, I didn't know how the world functioned outside Rajneeshpuram. I know how Rajneeshpuram functioned, how around Bhagwan things function, that I knew firsthand. But how the normal world functioned, I didn't know. But one thing was certain, in this issue there is no compromise. And I must go and find out, burn if I have to burn, but I must go through it, go through that fire. And if I come out of that fire, then I will be a phoenix.
Mm.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I think आपके memoir में also you've described this idea of following your khidra. And the khidra,
Right.
its calling came, and if it required you to burn the bridge behind you, you had to burn that bridge behind you.
I was just saying it's very admirable how committed you were to your values, especially like you said, you had no idea of how you would manage in the real world. But just because you had to stick to your values, it takes a lot of courage. So it's really admirable.
It does take a lot of courage,
Yeah.
but it also makes you adventurous. And the joy of adventure, no one can take it away from me.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. It's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah.
It's how you see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shilaji, one thing that we spoke of courage and taking life as an adventure, and this is an adventure that usually ends with the inevitable death that we all have to face one day. While we all know that this is a part of our reality, most people avoid talking about it. They don't know how to prepare for it. They can't embrace it. We wanted to know your thoughts on it, on how one can just manage the idea of death better.
Well, I'm actively reflecting on it, and I have actively written about it in my book, By My Own Rules. I have seen number of people die in my life who were very near and dear to me. One thing, first thing I learned, it is not avoidable. And it is part of nature. So I don't want to set time limit on it. I don't want to be afraid of it because I saw my mother, father die in a beautiful way. Then I saw my older sister die in the same way as my mother, father died, with willingness to go. Though it was not an issue of euthanasia or the soul, they went naturally. But naturally, too, you have to decide your time up. What happens is most people don't live life fully. They either live in their wishes or they live in the guilt or they live in, I wish I would have done this. And then when the last moment comes, they hang on to it. And then modern illnesses participate in this hold on death. They feel isolated. They feel afraid of death. In my work, I am reminded every day about death. So I am preparing myself for my last day. Put it that way. Whenever it comes, I am ready because I have lived my life fully. And I continue to live till the last day.
It's so important, and you're also not carrying the baggage of your past with you.
Right.
It's a,
Wow.
it's a great insight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great insight to live life so fully, like almost nichod ke hai, that when death comes, you are in a place to embrace it and surrender to it and embrace it as a part of.
Absolutely. And this dance of life is so wonderful. Even if you have missteps in this dance, it doesn't matter. If you don't like the tune of the music, you change to new music. Or you accept whatever music is available.
Yeah, that freedom. Yeah, I think it in fact, that idea is one idea that I have taken really deeply from my readings of his, which is like having the courage to embrace authentically what rises spontaneously within you. And I think actually, if I segue into that as a topic, there was, of course, communion with him. There was also learning from his varied insights into spirituality and human nature. But I also assume that there were a lot of practical things to learn from Bhagwan. For instance, he had a sublime way with words. I think your father also, the day he took you to meet him, he had said he has Saraswati on his tongue. And you have discussed elsewhere, like a little bit around how I used to talk, how I used to communicate with others and speak to the public. I learned from him. I'm curious when it comes to these practical lessons around leadership and all that it entails, whether it's managing people, motivating people, speaking to the public and beyond. What were some of the lessons that you learned from Bhagwan?
Very good question. To run a commune of people who think they are the elite, because Bhagwan attracted the elite of the world, intellectual elite, professional elite. And these people have bigger ego than anybody normal because they are the elite. I had to constantly deal with them being non-elite. And Bhagwan had chosen me as his secretary, and that went against many men of the commune. And I agree, I was simply in love with the man. Whatever he says, I'm ready for it. I had only yes for him. And that yes was the quality he was looking for. So one of the first things that he taught me that elite have their mediocre. Among the elite, they have their mediocre. And they will cause you problems. The real elite will understand the logic behind it. But the mediocre will criticize. You ignore it. That was one thing. Whenever I am troubled or I have a confusion of about something, how to go about it or the so, ask me. That was his instruction. And I always asked him. He gave me the best answer and a workable answer because he was a man of practicality, as you have said. My whole media appearances in the 80s, they were training of Bhagwan. This is how he wanted me to present myself. He said, don't be afraid. You are not strong enough, as strong as I would like you to be. And you have seen my old videos, I'm sure, in Wild Wild Country. So, and it wasn't strong enough for them. But that was our protection. Because of my being so bold, we were constantly getting more media attention. And this media attention became our protection from politicians. People don't understand it, how deep Bhagwan's thinking was and how perfect analyzed was. And there, when he guides me, there are no buts, no arguments, no other ideas. And I valued being in that position of his secretary because that was one of the way I could remain in his fragrance. And I was not going to blow it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's I never really thought of that, but actually for you to manage and massage so many massive egos, to strike that delicate balance, to also take action towards the preservation of the community. So the way you're interacting with media also, it's like it's quite a tightrope.
Yeah. It was a tightrope. Working with men like Bhagwan is not easy also. You have to be ready to understand the move of his eyebrow. When he moves his eyebrow, you know there is somewhere a problem.
Mm.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
So there's a lot of, it seems like when you're communicating also, that attunement to him and also reading between the lines also. So everything will not be spelled out to you. Is what you're saying.
Yes. Not only that,
Yeah.
for an answer he doesn't like.
Mm.
Mm,
What he tells you to do now should have been done already last year.
yeah.
That is the speed he works on.
Yeah. Yeah.
The absolute dedication that we've seen from your end towards Bhagwan is commendable. And you've often said that you've loved him very dearly and you still do. This is a concept that I think most individuals struggle with, which is loving without expectation. And you're someone that has actually achieved this in your life. Can you take us through how that works? How do you get rid of expectations when it comes to love?
Expectations are the result of desire.
Hmm.
And when you have expectations, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
With disappointment comes the depression,
Mm-hmm.
and then things go wrong.
That's true. Yeah.
In my case, there were no expectations.
Mm,
Whatever comes from Bhagwan, I took it as a prasad.
mm,
It
yeah.
was, how did I get it? I didn't
Yeah.
even deserve it.
Yeah.
So I felt always abundantly showered
Yeah.
by him.
Yeah.
And this feeling brought me to gratefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Gratefulness then makes you generous.
Mm.
Mm, mm,
The ability to give now, yes.
yeah.
So right.
Pass on.
Yeah.
You don't hold on.
Yeah.
You don't
You
know.
don't feel jealous. You don't feel somebody's going to take away your love because anyway, no one can take it away.
Yeah.
It is my
Mm,
feeling. It is my art.
Yeah.
mm,
How is anybody going to take away my feelings and my heart?
Yeah.
yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do I have to be jealous?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so empowering and freeing in a way. It's so right.
Yeah,
It just frees
Yeah.
you because now no one else can interfere. It's you with your own understanding.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sheila, you mentioned how Bhagwan would not like hearing the word no. And as an individual yourself, because it wasn't like you were only his secretary, we all saw you as an independent woman as well. I think, like you said, it can be tricky to work with someone of his caliber. We also heard you say that he was a genius, he's a beautiful man, but also he had a side where maybe for bigger ulterior motives or like for certain reasons he would maybe in certain instances take advantage of certain people's emotions or frailty. Was that ever an issue with you independently? Was that a moral issue that you were dealing with? How did you cope with something of that sort?
Well, I spoke to him personally after I left Bhagwan. I think it was 60 Minutes Australia or somebody was doing the interview. And they wanted, they must have asked me a question. It's too many years now in between. So I don't remember the exact question, but I confronted Bhagwan. I said, Bhagwan, I feel you are manipulative. And that was, in that moment, was my feeling. But I could talk to him about my feelings, whatever they are. That was our relationship. Yeah. And after I left, he was very angry with me. I assume that he didn't take that statement very well of mine. And he felt hurt or upset, I'm sure. So for me, when I feel genuinely something, I wasn't even afraid of declaring it to Bhagwan. Our relationship was of love. Our relationship was honest. And I didn't feel that I have to hide it. And I don't mind, even if he was manipulating, it didn't affect my love for him.
Yeah. Because you have articulated this idea also of there are people who will completely uh, 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 be dismissive of his ideas and sex cult, sex guru, and this and that. And there will also be people who elevate him to an incredibly high pedestal. And you've always spoken about this, no, the humanness. Ye bhi tha, wo bhi tha. There was beauty and there was grace and there was divinity, but there was also this side as well. So why deny the humanness?
Yeah, definitely. I always looked at him as a man first.
Yeah.
And his qualities first.
Yeah.
And you cannot ignore his beauty as a man, as a beautiful, talented human being.
Yeah.
And men with charisma and courage that he had to create his entire movement.
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. And like the saying goes, every light has its shadow. So you can't shake your fist at the light for having a shadow. That's just the way it works. Yeah. And in fact, I'm curious, Sheila also about your evaluation of some of his thoughts and ideas, because he had a lot of sometimes unconventional, sometimes challenging, sometimes enlightening ideas on, like we said, various topics. I was curious, like I wanted to go through maybe a few of them and then hear your perspective on whether you sort of were in agreement with his ideas, were you in disagreement with his ideas, or were you sort of somewhere in the middle on the fence about it? Does that sound?
Oh, I definitely agree with his ideas. But I will make one small difference, which is not a small difference, it's a big difference. His ideas, he verbalized till 1985, or one could say middle of 85. in his original way. Later on, you see the difference when he was under addiction. Then he did not sound at times coherent, or he sounded far-fetched. But in spite of that, what he has left for this world, no one else has left that kind of treasure of knowledge and intellect. No one
Oh,
before.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's a treasure trove of an intellectual legacy. Like, for instance, his ideas on marriage. And in fact, I'm curious, what was your evaluation or your perspective on his ideas of marriage? Because I know back then and even now, like, it causes a lot of controversy.
I fully agree with him. It's very logical. And mostly we get married under pressure from the family, or because you don't like to be alone, or you want financial security or sexual security, and one marries. But it is only because of this, because of this, because of this. And where love disappears, nobody knows. Or was there love anyway? Who knows? And then things don't work out, and then conflicts, conflicts after conflict. And one hangs on for the same reason one got married, security. It will never get better.
Yeah.
No, I like how you spoke about how people get married for various reasons, and mostly that reason is not love. There's so many other reasons, and I was wondering, there's this preoccupation that people have when it comes to Osho and the Osho Ashram, which is with sex. And I was wondering if you see a link between sex and love, or do you see them as two separate things?
Two separate things. And people misunderstand for promiscuity Bhagwan's idea of sex. He says, understand your basic desire of sex. Understand it. And through understanding it, you deal with it. People take that as, oh, he preaches sex. No, he's preaching exactly the opposite. Don't become the victim of your sexuality. Don't become perverse. In fact, he says sex can be sacred event when enjoyed and collaborated in love. He's no sex guru. There were no sex parties. I was 14 years. I was there from the beginning of Pune Ashram till 1985 September with Bhagwan. I never saw once a sex party. So people use their perversion to blame on him. And our religious leaders, the fundamental religious leaders, they all tell you to suppress sex. And Bhagwan says, don't suppress it, understand it. Enjoy your sexuality with a partner with a mutual consent. It is totally different picture. But sometimes journalists don't have enough to write. They make up their own fantasy. They think from their own sexuality and call him a sex guru.
Mm, yeah,
I think because it's a taboo, it's also such a big issue. Like I think
yeah,
people are so preoccupied because it's such a taboo topic, and I think Bhagwan was only trying to normalize it so that more important things can get attention. Yeah.
yeah.
This also brings me to when we separate sex and love, um, doesn't it coincide with the idea of open relationships? Because then it wouldn't work for something which is monogamous.
Open relationship should not come because of sexuality. Open relationship should be there in all cases for worship of freedom, individual freedom. Two different things. When you respect the individual, then you give them the freedom. You talk of freedom because primary feeling is to experiment with sexuality.
Mm,
Mm.
mm, mm.
No. Then it is manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Never quite. Yeah, I've never quite thought of it that way. Yeah,
And, mhm. And we don't allow the freedom for the partner because we think they are our possession, or we have a marriage certificate, and because of this marriage certificate, we can hold them. No, you can hold their body, but not their thought processes and emotion.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like we're discussing, like we're on this topic, discuss marriage, sexuality, relationships. I guess one related area on this that I was curious on your thoughts about was the idea of raising children. Because I do know, like in the context of the commune and all, there was this idea that, children don't have two parents, children choose their parents and they're sort of like they're children of the commune. I'm curious, like what were your thoughts on raising children after digesting, assimilating Bhagwan's ideas as well as your own thoughts? Like, how did you put them all together?
It works the same way as your spouse or partner. You don't own them. Give them freedom to be individual. Of course, you help them, you give them understanding, you protect them from wrong elements. But don't think they are your richness when you become old, that they will take care of you. No. Today's world, it doesn't happen often.
True, unfortunately. There's that beautiful poem, no, by Khalil Gibran on children, where he says, uh, "They are not your children; they are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself." Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Sheila ji. I feel like more than the podcast, it's been such a learning experience for us. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and giving us your time. And like we said, we know your time is precious, but hopefully we can reconnect in the future again.
Definitely. Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we wish you the best.
So nice meeting you
Bye.
both.
Lovely, lovely meeting you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.